how and why I shortlisted certain companies while ignoring the rest, struggles, the India versus global brand problem, not to focus on just your skills, and finally, interviewing hacks. I've been an entrepreneur for the past decade, worked as an executive, managed a company of 600 people, then COVID hit. Overnight, 95% of our revenue was gone, and the team went from 600 to just 6. Even though the business barely survived, I decided to move to Canada and start from scratch. My expenses tripled overnight. I no longer had a family home and my safety net completely gone. Two things hit me at the same time: the business collapse and moving countries. That combo pushed me completely into survival mode. After 10 years of running my own company, I had to seriously think about entering the workforce again. Most job seekers fall into one of these three categories: survival, growth or experience, and exposure. I went straight up survival. Even though the business was still trickling in money, it wasn't enough to sustain. That's when I decided to get a job. My focus was simple. Through a job, I can get local experience, meet industry experts here, and build a network that could help me later on in life if I were to restart my business again. If you're in your 30s and have management or executive experience, but no local experience, landing a similar role in a new country is ridiculously hard. People had been trying to find a job for close to a year and hadn't gotten any return calls. That's when I realized job hunting had to be done like a sniper and not a machine gunner. Pick fewer, well-researched companies instead of blasting hundreds of random applications. I aimed mostly at startups and fast growth companies instead of larger established firms. The reasoning was quite simple. Startups gave me an edge. They value people who can thrive in chaos, make quick calls, and wear multiple hats. Bigger companies, they're a lot more rigid. People there are trained to play it safe and follow structures. It also makes it extremely difficult and time-consuming to get hired at these firms. It's funny how life works. Even though you've accomplished a lot in your life, at your most vulnerable moment, even the most simplest tasks can seem very daunting. For example, it took me an entire month just to make my first resume. The last interview I gave was 10 years ago. If someone asked me what can I do, the answer was always everything. Sales, operations, marketing, account management. But companies don't want employees who can do everything. They want people who can execute one thing really well and can understand others. And I didn't know how to package that in order to make myself stand out. Thinking about it now, writing the resume and applying for jobs was harder than the actual interview and working at that job. In order to fix this, I went deep in YouTube, resume preparation, interview tips, application strategies. I watched every single video that you could find on YouTube. Unfortunately, most of them were created for freshers, but a few creators made content for senior management and executives, and also people who were close to retirement. I found their content really useful and extremely valuable for what I was looking at. I eventually paid $600 for that bootcamp. Honestly speaking, I think that was the cheapest thing that I've ever spent money on. If they even charged me $10,000, it would have done complete justice for the amount of value it provided and everything that I learned when it comes to interview and job preparation. I practiced answers, visualized interviews, even role-played them. During the job hunting process, I realized one thing, and here's the harsh truth. If you worked at companies like Microsoft, Google, Deloitte, KPMG, you've got a much higher chance of success even if you were in a pretty junior role. Recruiters are aware of these brands and companies and usually will shortlist resumes if you've got experience in these kind of companies. But let's say you worked at a company, even if it is a unicorn back in India or in your home country, and if it is not known globally, let's say for example, Zomato, Paytm or Reliance, it doesn't matter what your accomplishments were, the kind of problems you solved or how difficult it was to get that role, they would have never even heard of this. Most recruiters outside would have never heard of these companies. In fact, I have a lot of friends who are IIT and IIM graduates, who are some of the smartest and most hardworking people that I know. And even though they've cleared one of the toughest exams in the world, beaten thousands and lakhs of students in competition, they don't really stand off because outside of India, very few people have heard of these universities. Meanwhile, a random degree from a well-known local university will beat your IIT and IIM on paper. The unfortunate truth is, if your resume doesn't even get picked, You don't even get the chance to explain. That's reality. In my personal experience as well, the only reason I even got callbacks was because I had director level experience at a New York based startup. Without that, I doubt I'd even get noticed. On paper, an Indian resume looks like the thousands that they discard daily. So, what's the workaround? Relationships. Start building them even before you move. Find the local equivalent of your company. Say, for example, you work for Zomato. Try and reach out to someone who's at Uber Eats or DoorDash. And if you're working at a company like Reliance, try reaching out to someone who works at Costco or Walmart. Share ideas, build relationships. Because today, relationships are actually more valuable than skills. There was a time when demand was higher than supply. So, if you were a full stack developer or a designer, your skill sets actually had a lot more value in the market. But lately, we have a lot of people who have these skills and it's very hard to stand out. Good talent is everywhere. Your network and personal brand is actually what will set you apart. So, how can you build your personal brand? Write blogs, post on LinkedIn, share projects online, show your work, redesign a workflow, mock up a better product. Reach out to the person running that product and share your perspective. Even if they don't hire you, they'll remember you and maybe they might connect you with somebody else. The age-old wisdom of it's not what you know, but who you know is more relevant today than at any point in history. One trick that worked for me: connect with the interviewer. Before you interview, try and find out as much information as you can about the person who is interviewing you. Go deep in terms of searching everything about them, right from their professional work experience to their personal life. Find common ground, shared interests. I once found out that my interviewer was an avid motorcyclist and a Formula One fan. Since we shared common interests, we spent the first 30 minutes of the interview casually talking about these two topics, and the actual interview was just 15 minutes long. Suddenly, two strangers had something in common. I was less nervous, the conversation just naturally flowed, and the whole interview felt very light and easygoing. Back then, I had to rely on YouTube and boot camps. Now you've got ChatGPT. You can practice and simulate interviews. No excuses anymore. Yes, the job market is really hard, but it's also easy to stand out from the crowd.